The Supreme Court of India has made strong remarks against the increasing hate speech incidents in the country. Not just that, the court has gone a step ahead and also called out the state for its inaction in controlling these hate speech incidents. We're speaking to senior advocate Sidharth Luthra in this regard. Sir, the Supreme Court has spoken about politics and religion. The court has said that if politicians stop using religion in politics and stop playing these games, then all of this will stop. What's your take on that?
So I think that's more a question for the politicians to answer, not really a legal question. But the fact is, religion has become part of the political and public discourse over the last many decades. Now, when that happens, as a matter of social understanding, and this is not just law, you will find that there is a lot more there are a lot more voices of fringe or extreme elements across communities, across religions, whose voices are begun to be heard. And when those voices are heard, they are not necessarily always voices of reason. There are two concerns that have to be dealt with. One is the right to freedom of speech and the right not to breach and the duty not to breach that right of freedom of speech. The Indian state has chosen not to make a separate class of offences called hate speech, because in 2013, and I must tell you, the Supreme Court Justice Dr. B.S. Chauhan's bench had said there are enough provisions to deal with hate speech. So, on the one hand, we have a situation where it appears, at least public figures believe, that religious issues or religion-related issues or even religion is a vote benefit or generates or helps them create a large voter base. And that is a practical reality. The fact is, when it crosses a limit, it becomes what we call hate speech and is then falls afoul of the law. And those grey areas are being breached often enough. But the fundamental problem is when it breaches the Lakshman Rekha, so to speak, and becomes an offence, there is also a corresponding failure of state agencies, police agencies, administration to act to curtail these breaches of the law. And that is what is leading to an increased public discourse which is relatable to religion. If you ask me, I think the issue of religion is fundamental to all of us, and especially in a country like India, and therefore a discourse about religion is a healthy discourse. There is nothing unhealthy about it. Where it crosses limits and falls afoul of the law is the problem. So to that extent, I think the remarks of the Supreme Court have to be understood that statements falling afoul of the law, constituting hate speech, being derogatory of other religious or religious communities, have to be dealt with in accordance with the provisions within the statute, within the penal code. The second thing which we must also keep in mind is that courts can't create law. What courts can do and what courts do is that when state agencies choose not to act or do not act, then courts can direct investigations to be done, direct FIRs to be registered, and even monitor those investigations. That's part two. But the third and the most important thing is it not time for those in public life, those holding constitutional posts, member of legislative assemblies, MLCs, MPs, other constitutional functionaries, to follow the constitution and the laws? Now, what is the constitution? The constitution is the right to freedom of speech with reasonable restrictions. But the laws are that reasonable restriction. The IPC provisions prohibiting or proscribing hate speech is that law. Are our public functionaries not duty bound to comply with the oath that they take on the constitution? And that will require a change. Till then, according to me, the practical answer will be, and that's something again which will have to be done as part of the political will, to separate the executive, the political executive, and separate the police from the political executive, make them independent, bring in infrastructure, bring in architecture as recommended in the Prakash Singh judgment, so the police and investigating agencies can act independently, fearlessly and fairly in dealing with all kinds of crime, and including hate crime, hate speech crime. So all of this can only be achieved through that process. Today, remember, police is a state subject, and therefore the state authorities have major control on police. I heard a statement by the Solicitor General made in court that we have banned an organization. But the point is, there are union territories where the union government has to maintain law and order through the Home Ministry. They are duty bound to maintain it. There are states where the state governments of different political outfits have to maintain law and order. A question needs to be asked to them. Are you doing your bit? Are you enforcing the laws? Are you upholding the Constitution?
So, strong remarks from the court against the state, where the court has called the state impotent for remaining silent and for not taking action. Do you agree with the court's view that states need to step up?
No, I'm very clear on this. Undoubtedly, the states need to step up. There is no question. The court is absolutely right. I may feel the choice of the words used by the court are a little on the harsher side, but the fact is, the increase in hate speeches is on account of the failure of the state and its agencies to enforce the laws. Crime will increase when state agencies choose not to enforce the law, do not enforce the law, possibly because of mandates that they have, unwritten mandates, or possibly because the figures that they have to enforce the law are their own political masters. The moment police agencies, investigating agencies, administrations realize that they owe a duty to the law and the law alone, and not just to those who have appointed them, we will be a much safer and a better country.
So last question. In the recent past, we've seen that these cases which are being filed against hate speech incidents before the courts have increased, and the court has been hearing these cases. Do you think courts' interference has helped or can help the situation?
I would say the jury is out on that one. We'll have to see the results on these cases. The problem in this country is that we don't do an audit of investigations that begin and how they culminate, successfully, unsuccessfully at the investigation stage and then at the prosecution stage. So I think it's time for us not just to take those eyeball grabbing or eyeball catching cases that get reported, but to try and have a more deeper understanding on the ground. Has there been in the last 2 decades a greater reporting of hate speech? Has there been in the last 2 decades, illustratively, and I'm using 2 decades as an example, has there been in the last few decades a greater prosecution of hate speech in terms of the number of total cases registered in the population? And thirdly, what have those prosecutions resulted in till the final stage, not just at the trial court or the sessions court or at the high court level? So that analysis will have to be made. The difficulty that we live in a time of social media and the internet, where a lot of issues grab public attention till they are lost. So this has to be a study based on the data generated by police agencies, through jails, through courts, and through the prosecutor's office.
Thank you so much for joining us, sir. As Sir said, the jury is still out on whether courts' interference in these cases will help change the reality on ground. With camera person Raja from New Delhi, this is Srishti, Ojha, India Today.